If you're tired of living in your state, you may be thinking moving to Idaho is the answer. And it could be. I moved my family from California 7 years ago. And let me tell you, no one talks about the stress that comes with moving from one state to another. Not only the stress on yourself, but if you're moving extended family as well, yes, multiple households elevate the stress exponentially because their stress feeds your stress, which in turn feeds their stress again. And if you're moving older parents and grandparents, then you might as well be moving them to the moon because everything is such a big deal. You get the idea. It's never easy moving to a new state, but I've made this video just for you, hopefully as a way to ease you through the relocation process. I can't eliminate anxiety and stress that come with making a huge move, but I can perhaps help you be better prepared. I'll be covering 4 main categories today: preparing for the move, the out-of-state home buying process, relocation and integration for once you've arrived, and then finally post-move support and community involvement. If you have questions along the way as I go through each category, comment below and I'll respond with answers that you need. So let's start with preparing for the move and understanding Boise. Before making the move to any new state or to any new city for that matter, I would expect that you've done research. Perhaps you've watched my other videos on the pros and cons of living in Boise, Idaho, or things you need to know before buying a home in Boise, Idaho. But let's touch on a few main points about Boise and its surrounding cities. You will hear people referring to the area as the Treasure Valley. This was a moniker created 60 plus years ago to reflect the wealth of resources and opportunities in the region. What cities are included as part of the Treasure Valley? That would be Boise, Eagle, Meridian, Star, Middleton, Nampa, Caldwell, and Kuna. The state and Boise itself consistently rank among the top safest states and cities to live in. And Boise has a temperate climate, but you do experience all 4 seasons here, from snow to hot summers. For the majority of those living in the Treasure Valley, being outdoors and being active is a lifestyle choice. So there is never a shortage of activities to get into. And unemployment tends to be lower than the national average, with strong growth in areas like construction and healthcare. There is such a diverse selection of industries in Idaho, though. Locally speaking, Boise is home to employers such as Micron, the only US-based memory chip maker. Other large employers might be Albertsons or Blue Cross of Idaho, Sensi, the hospital systems like St. Luke's and St. Alphonsus. According to the Department of Commerce, high-tech companies in Idaho have grown 61% over the past decade. And that's because we have a low-cost, pro-business environment here, and it makes it attractive to large companies and startups. And our agriculture business is 7th in the US for product exports per capita. Now, selecting a neighborhood. There are so many cities that make up the greater Treasure Valley. So let's start with the city of Boise itself, which would include downtown and Boise State University. In the heart of Boise, you'll find established older neighborhoods like the North End with historical homes and walkability to downtown. Then as you fan out from there, you'll find traditional neighborhoods that you might find in any large city with single-family residents that range in size. You'll also find multifamily options in and around Boise that accommodate transitional demographics, younger demographics, Boise State College students. Some might say Boise has a Midwest feel, similar to cities that you'd see in Michigan or Illinois. And there's sections of Boise that are so old that they don't have a grid system, like the streets just sort of wind around at will through the foothills or around the river. Boise is large in land size, if not population. There are so many unique areas within Boise city limits that it would be impossible to list them all out here. I'd need to make multiple videos on Boise itself. So if there's a particular area of interest for you, comment below and I'll be sure to make a video for you. Now, if you drive farther east to East Boise, it has a very Northern California feel. Houses are tighter and clustered together. It's like a modern master plan community. You have coffee shops and views and trails to hike. I know when I show homes in East Boise, it's not the type of neighborhood where I'd be able to grab a quick Diet Coke from a fast food restaurant. I'd be more inclined to find a sandwich shop or a bakery. Heading west of Boise, you blink and you might miss Garden City. Not because the city is so small, but rather it's just this weird sort of jut into like inlet into the middle of Boise. But it has its own police force. It sits on the river with easy access to the greenbelt. It's sort of like this hidden gem. Further west is the city of Eagle, which has a very Southern California feel. It has a variety of home styles from large acreage properties to pocket subdivisions, and it's a little more spread out than, say, East Boise. I have a couple of videos that I filmed specifically about Eagle, Idaho, so be sure to check those out for a deeper dive into the city of Eagle. South of Eagle is Meridian. It's very urban, lots of neighborhoods, lots of infrastructure. It's packed with a variety of housing options, almost like micro communities. Meridian has a downtown area as well with shops and restaurants and bars. Then you have rural communities such as Star and Middleton, where you'll find farms and acreage properties in addition to quantity builder communities like CBH. But honestly, CBH homes, they're everywhere actually. Then you have Nampa and Caldwell, and they're a little bit more industrial. Caldwell is revitalizing its downtown area and holds summer concerts and other events. Finally, there is Kuna. And Kuna is or was farmland, and now neighborhoods are just starting to pop up everywhere. Whatever your preference is, there is likely an option for you. A big part of preparing for your move to Idaho is visiting Boise either multiple times if possible, or at least with enough time that you can explore the Treasure Valley and get to know the variety of cities that are out there and available to you. During our first visit, we made sure that we drove around to all of these cities to find what felt right to us. We were moving from Southern California, so when we pulled up to Eagle, Idaho, it felt familiar, and that's ultimately where we settled. But I have clients from different parts of the country who, when they come to town, they're seeking something different, a different lifestyle. Maybe it's hiking in the foothills or walkability to downtown, or as much space as possible between them and their neighbors. Once you've decided that you're moving to Idaho and you've either found that home that you're moving into, or perhaps you'll be renting first until you find the right home, that's when the real stress begins, right? Because now you need to move your household, and that's tough. Out-of-state movers can totally be hit or miss, and in my experience, a particular mover that was great in years past may not be providing the same level of service they did before. So I would absolutely recommend that you get a couple of quotes. Well, you know what? Wait, let's step back for a minute and discuss different options you have for moving your stuff to another state. Option 1 is to hire movers to pack up a huge truck, drive the truck to your destination. This is where you do the least amount of work yourself. So that can be ideal in some situations, but I absolutely suggest that you interview at least 2, if not 3 moving companies, because 1, it's going to be way more expensive than you think it will be, and 2, the moving company is never on the same page as you. So let me give you a personal example. This is from when my parents were moving from Southern California up to Idaho. We hired a particular moving company that they had used in the past. The company came out and looked around through the house and saw the stuff that we were moving and gave us a quote. My parents were selling their house furnished. So we were really only taking a few select furniture items, our household goods, and their clothing. But it still amounted to a lot of stuff, like a lot of boxes. So the crew was scheduled to wrap up the furniture, like they were going to supply the packing blankets and wrap it up and pick it up and carry it to their truck along with our pre-packaged boxes. But when the team got there, they were like, why don't you have everything ready for us just to pack into the truck? And we're like, that's not what we signed up for. Like, you guys were supposed to be prepared for this. It took a whole lot longer to get the process completed than it should have, because we had this whole back and forth and they weren't prepared, nor did they have the manpower to do what we needed them to do. It was such a huge ordeal and so stressful because there was a communication breakdown between us hiring them and then showing up to do the move. And then on top of that, because that wasn't enough, they didn't have enough space for all our stuff. See, what moving companies do, they will come out and look at what items you have and they'll estimate how much space in the truck that might take. Then they allocate that space within a huge 18-wheeler, let's say. But if you don't fill up that entire truck, you're sharing that space with other families who may be making a move too. So when they showed up to take my parents' stuff, even though again, we had given them a preview of everything that we were taking, they underestimated the amount of space it would take. So they had 2 other families in that truck already, including a car, and they needed to drop that stuff off first, and that didn't allow for enough space for our household. So they ended up having to come back out with a second truck and packing that full of whatever they couldn't pack in the first load. So I just caution when hiring a moving company to be prepared for them to elevate your stress level. Now, of course, I tell my clients to reconfirm, maybe ask the company to come out a second time to check how much stuff you really have, but just stay on it. So a second option is what we did when moving our own personal household. We ordered pods. The company delivers the pod to your driveway or street. You pack the pod up and then you lock it with your own lock and you keep the keys. They take the pod and they'll deliver it usually within a week or 2, or in the case if you're renting, they'll store it for you for however long you need. We liked how this process worked for us because we were able to order the pod to be delivered a few days earlier than when we wanted them to pick it up, so we had enough time to pack everything. But once again, we did not account for as much stuff as we had. I mean, your household is tucked away in cabinets and closets. You don't realize how much stuff you have until you start boxing it up. So we ended up having to order a second pod. Then last but not least is the tried and true U-Haul truck. Fort Penske, you pick up the truck, you load it up, then you drive it up to Idaho, you unload it, and you return it to the U-Haul office. This can be stressful because the burden of the move is on you. You're tired from packing, loading, driving, and unloading. So if this is what you choose, give yourself and anyone in your household a little grace during that time. You may also need to think about car transport, especially if one of you is driving the U-Haul, but you have multiple cars in your household. Yes, you can trailer it up, but you may need to hire a car carrier. When it comes to cost and considerations of moving, again, I go back to the fact that you will typically underestimate the cost of moving trucks, pods, or U-Hauls. So be prepared and get multiple quotes. The other thing that you may not have had to deal with in a while is re-establishing utilities. And because you are moving to a new state, you will have deposits at these new utility companies. That is until you've established service credit with them. The one thing that is nice about setting up utilities in Idaho is that most of it can be done online, and when you do need to call into a company, you typically get a person rather than an automated system. Hiring a local real estate agent is so important. When you're considering a move, it's never too early to reach out to a real estate agent local to where you want to move, especially if that move requires you relocating to a new state. Doesn't mean you have to be 100% sure that you're even making the move, but the sooner you reach out, the more informed you can be both about the market in that new state and what's available to you in your desired price range. It's not uncommon for me to work with clients over the course of multiple years because they know they want to move to Idaho, but perhaps there's a milestone that needs to be achieved first, like retirement or a child's high school graduation. I'm currently working with clients where retirement is scheduled for next summer, but they're already starting to look because they have a very specific need for a house, and we know it may take a while to find a home with that specific need. If we find it before they retire, then we pivot and we have a strategy for that because we've already had that discussion and we have a plan in place. So again, you see the importance of reaching out early. Now, on the flip side, I occasionally have buyers who reach out to me, and Idaho is just one of many states that they are considering. But I've been able to put them in touch with trusted colleagues in those other states too. So although they ultimately didn't move to Idaho, we were still able to make sure they were taken care of in the state that they did move to. And let me just touch on a side note here for a second. People are always concerned with reaching out to a real estate agent when they're still in the planning phase. It might be because they don't know exactly what they want or when they'll be moving, or maybe they feel like they'd be pressured to buy a home that they don't need or don't like. Whatever the reason is, please don't be unprepared or less prepared for your move and add to your stress because you were afraid or uncomfortable reaching out too early. And if you ever feel pressured by an agent you selected, then maybe it's not the right fit. Our job is helping you sort through all the noise of the home buying process, whether it's headlines or maybe it's just even honing in on what you're really looking for. So again, I'll reiterate, it's never too early to reach out to a real estate agent in that local market. Most home searches start on the internet, but when you're doing it from out of state, it can be difficult and confusing if you don't know the area. So prior to contacting me, I experienced a buyer who did a home search online. They saw a large home, it was on acreage, and it was at a very reasonable price. They were sure this was the home they were coming up to buy. And we had conversations about what they were looking for, both in a house and a community. And I knew this wasn't the right fit. So when they finally did visit, of course they didn't end up liking the neighborhood, and it wasn't even the type of house that they wanted. It was on acreage because it was quite a ways outside of town. And although it was large, it wasn't what they had described they needed in a house. And this isn't always the case. Sometimes home searches online will show you exactly what you want to buy and where you want to buy it. But having a local expert can help you navigate that too. What about traveling for viewing and closing? In a perfect world, out-of-state buyers would be able to travel up to view every home they were interested in, but that's not realistic. Yes, we do get those buyers who come up for the weekend and we're fortunate enough to find them a home and get them under contract, and then they return back to their state with the peace of mind that they've toured the home themselves, and then the next time they see it will be when they move in. But I've also had those situations where clients haven't been able to see the home in person. So we do everything we can in order to show them the home as if they were walking through it themselves, either through video or FaceTime. And often we may need to revisit the home a second or third time if additional questions come up after they've digested that first home tour that we filmed for them. We try to be as detail-oriented as possible so the client feels that they have been in the home. We might include videos of neighboring streets or local infrastructure, and some buyers will write offers on a home and then travel up during the inspection period. I had one family drive all the way up from Texas to attend the inspection of their home, and then as soon as the inspection was done, they turned around and drove back. But if you aren't able to attend the inspection, the inspector will go through and inspect the home for major issues and even just minor or cosmetic items too. And then the inspector provides videos and pictures as well. And this gives you yet another look into the home, things I won't necessarily be able to capture on video, like crawl space or attics. When it comes to closing though, although it's lovely to be able to be here yourself to sign documents and wire funds and collect the keys at the moment, you can be anywhere. Mobile notaries will be sent to wherever you are to sign the documents a few days prior to closing. And then when you do arrive, I will greet you with your new home keys. Before I continue, my name is Erica Toffel, Global Real Estate Advisor with Group 1 Sotheby's International Realty. I specialize in helping families relocate to Boise, Idaho from anywhere in the country. If you need help with any of your real estate needs, my information is on the screen. And please be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you get notified each time I drop a new video. I know I mentioned this earlier, but it's worth mentioning again. It is never too early to reach out to a real estate advisor in whatever location you are moving to, whether you might be moving next week or next year or in 2 years. The more time you have to learn about the place that you will be relocating to, the smoother, the more informed you can be. When a client reaches out to me from out of state, we have an initial conversation so that we can start to get to know each other and build that relationship. But then I always send them a relocation guide for the Treasure Valley. And if you type Boise in the comments below, I will be sure to get my relocation guide to you. The relocation guide is an overview of all the different areas that make up the greater Treasure Valley. The buyer can start looking into the different cities and becoming familiar with them, and then we can take like a deeper dive into their lifestyle, their wants and needs, and why they're making the move. This gives us a great foundation from where to springboard our search. Coming from California, a lot of my clients only want to consider private school options. And although we have a very good public school system here, they've already started on that path and they want to continue. So we're able to integrate them into communities that are close to those schools. Or perhaps the child is focused on a sport like gymnastics or football or softball, in which case I would absolutely recommend coming out and talking to coaches. If you already know the city that you want to be in, then check to see the zoning for those high schools. Like Meridian has a couple of high schools that feed it, and Eagle, it only has one. But Boise, it has a couple of different high schools. So depending on which coach you talk to and connect with may influence which area you ultimately want to buy your home in. And again, going into the process and being as prepared as possible with as much information, it just will make relocating a smoother ride. I think for most cities, organizations, jobs, social groups, there are networking and social opportunities out there via Facebook groups or Instagram. I know for the city of Eagle, we have a City of Eagle app that you can go on that talks about city events and volunteer opportunities. So there's always a way to get dialed into the social opportunities in whichever city you move to. I feel like Facebook has a group for just about everything. So something else to be aware of when moving to Idaho from out of state, you'll be required to take a written test to get your new driver's license. And laws are different from state to state. Like the flashing yellow arrow is super common in Idaho. It means you can go when it's clear, which is different from California. And if you have a trust, the laws may be different in this state as whatever state you're coming from. So talk to a legal professional about that. Here's a pop quiz. When looking for a real estate agent as an out-of-state buyer, what should you be looking for? A, an agent located in your current state. B, an agent with expertise working with out-of-state clients. C, the cheapest agent available. Or D, an agent who works in commercial real estate. Comment your answer below. First one to respond with the correct answer will get a personal video response from me. This is always such a big one, finding home maintenance and improvement providers. It should be such a natural thing to reach out to your agent to find a trusted business for home-related services, or even non-home-related services you might need. I love it when my clients reach out and ask me for a dishwasher repairman, or a primary care physician, or my favorite restaurant for date night. But whether we've done a recent real estate transaction or we got them in their dream home 5 years ago and they're not moving until they retire, I still want to be their trusted advisor. I want them to know that I'm here to answer those questions for them and provide them with whatever resources they may need. And if I don't know, I have a network of colleagues that I work with who do. And typically the providers and vendors that we recommend are vetted, either by myself or past clients or current clients, family, friends, colleagues. If somebody has a good experience, they'll reach out and tell me about it. And it's those vendors that I want to refer to you. Healthcare and essential services sort of ties into the ability for me to support my clients as they make their move. Whether they need a dentist for themselves or an orthodontist for their kids, or they want to know where the closest urgent care is to their new home, I should always be a resource available to them. There's so many opportunities for getting involved in your local community or volunteer organizations. Whichever city you move to in the Treasure Valley, the local city hall is such a great resource for that type of information. But so is social media. Nearly every community throughout the valley has a Facebook group, as I mentioned before. And if Facebook is not your thing, then you can always reach out to me and I can canvas friends and colleagues who live in whatever community you want to participate in. I'm a member of the Connect Her networking group, and this group of amazing women have so many different organizations that they participate in and volunteer their time with, so there's always a resource out there. Relocating is never easy, but I take pride in helping make that move a little smoother. No, I probably can't remove all the stress that you will experience, but we can walk you through the process so that we can make this new chapter a little more fun. For more videos about relocating to Boise and real estate tips in general, make sure to check out one of the other videos on the screen. Thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one.